A lot of times we think of innovation as you have to invent something new to the world. It doesn't have to just be new to the world. Maybe it's a way that we were manually doing it before. We want to automate that and improve or enhance a process that we already have.
Right.
That's also a level of innovation.
Of course, yeah. Today I speak with Mike Deppe, VP of Global Product Development for Molex here at Siemens Realize Live. Our conversation covers a variety of topics ranging from how to foster innovation for a global engineering team to the latest additive manufacturing techniques for electronics. On this episode, we answer the questions, how do you define innovation, and how does one go from being a mechanical engineer to the vice president of global product development at a company like Molex? We live in a time where design and technology touch every aspect of our lives. But where did it all come from? Who designed it? How was it built and brought to market? What will it look like in a year, 2 years, 100 years? From the phones and smartwatches that help us in our day-to-day to the cutting-edge spaceships and 3D printers that are leading us into the future, modern design is constantly shaping the way we work, communicate, problem solve, and play. And every new design, big or small, starts with an idea and a bill of materials. I'm Magenta Strongheart, and this is The Bomb, where we talk to leading innovators in the tech world and celebrate the transformational power of design. You know, what I feel like Molex is really known for, which is not only this technical expertise, but combined with the customer first kind of approach in how you all work with your clients to really help them innovate and really have the best solutions for what they're developing.
Yeah, so I mean, working with Molex, I've been with the company for 21 years. Today, in fact.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, and it's been exciting because we get to work with so many different customers in different markets, different applications, seeing whether it's automotive, medical, industrial, consumer space. I mean, we see
you touch everything.
So many different aspects of it.
When I was trying to think of what we were going to discuss today, I was like, we could go so many different directions with this, you know?
Yes.
So yeah, absolutely. The catalog obviously is extensive and you guys cover every industry, so many different applications.
So we have over 100,000 different products, whether it's connectors, cable assemblies, printed circuit board assemblies, so many different aspects. But understanding where to prioritize or where to focus the time can sometimes be a challenge, whether it's in a big company or a small company. Those are all different aspects that are very challenging and difficult. So
yeah. So with such, extensive coverage across the industry, across multiple verticals and different companies that you all work with and are developing solutions for and serving, how, as VP of product development at Molex, how do you prioritize what your focus is and what your team's going to be working on, across all these different sectors?
Yeah. So that's what makes it really exciting about working at a company like Molex is you touch on so many different markets. So whether it is automotive, medical, industrial, consumer, datacom, or hyperscalers, we get to see and involve with all of it. Now, whether you're a large company or a small company, knowing what to prioritize or what to work on, that's really what the challenge can be. But there's really three main areas that we try to prioritize that I'm trying to lead for global product development. The first one is really around knowledge sharing. We have talent and expertise in so many different areas across the organization. We're trying to pull that back in to understand how do we leverage that across these different markets. So whether it's signal integrity that we have for high-speed applications for telecom or datacom communications, that's being incorporated now into automotive. How do we bridge that and leverage our talent? So knowledge
that makes
sharing
sense across these different departments. That would be huge, obviously, to help you guys be moving forward efficiently. Yeah. And not, doing the same thing in multiple places, right?
Exactly. Now, the second area in there is around talent management, because you have that expertise. How do you leverage the talent associated with it? Whether it's talent mobility, development, career development, and putting the right resources on the right projects. So making sure that we're working with our talent management aspects, applying the knowledge that we have in there. And then the third piece is building out the capabilities to allow our teams to be able to do their jobs more effectively. So that's one of the reasons we're here, right? Is to be able to see how do we work with partners like Siemens, Supplyframe to be able to achieve that, to build out our future capabilities around global product development.
Absolutely. It's interesting to think about the talent piece. I was just in one of the sessions yesterday where they're kind of discussing the shift in what companies are looking for, especially when it comes to engineering from, with technology evolving and changing so rapidly, it seems like there's actually a slight shift from being super focused on technical skills to a little bit more of some of those other problem solving and almost, I guess, soft skills, you could say in some ways, leadership and management and all of these other things, because obviously with the increase, of AI and all these other technologies that are advancing, there's a lot more you need to be able to do, and you need to be agile and flexible and kind of ready to adapt to anything, right?
Yeah. So there's definitely a level of what I would say traditional engineering, right? Mechanical engineering and electrical engineering is still the core of what we work on quite often. But being able to work in a collaborative space and being able to have that teamwork or team collaborative experience is really important for us to achieve our goals. The other piece of it is Molex is a global company. So you can't just get 4, 5, 6 engineers in the same room and be able to just crank through some of the problem solving aspects. So being able to be flexible and agile, to work in different groups around the world and global perspectives, it's all around the communication and collaboration of those teams that allows us to be successful with that.
Which is kind of a perfect segue. I was going to say, how much do you all rely on digital twin to kind of get some of these, some of these missions accomplished? I would say get this work done, obviously collaboratively, remote, global teams. How are you utilizing some of the digital twin technology, that people are talking about, especially here at this conference, to make that happen?
So I would say trying to get to a digital twin is like a state of utopia. If we can actually get to that state where we can actually create our products digitally before we physically create the molds, fixtures, the actual product or prototyping, that's the end game of what we want to do. So we're constantly looking at ways in which we can leverage simulation and modeling and incorporating that into our design process to get early on into that development. So it's a continuous loop at that point.
Right.
So we're designing, we're iterating, we're applying that, but then all those learnings that after we test it and qualify it and see, we're pulling that back in to the design cycle up front so that we can reduce the time to market, make sure that we're leveraging some of that knowledge and expertise that we have, and then ultimately ensure that we're achieving the requirements for our customers.
No, that makes sense. So it is kind of like the fantasy, but you guys are working there, constantly like being able to improve, I think, tools and resources for, like you said, the 3D modeling, the simulation, the testing, even before, the product's too far along, right?
Yeah. Those feedback loops are absolutely critical in that process. And oftentimes those feedback loops, sometimes they come from learning because we have to redo it. We learn something through a test and we realize, it didn't quite pass the test we thought. We pull that back in, but we're also trying to incorporate that into our requirements management and leveraging something like Polarian to see how do we feed those requirements in early enough so then we can leverage that on future designs instead of having to reinvent that or recreate that or duplicate that every single time.
And how much kind of customer feedback or really working with customers gets incorporated into some of those cycles and some of that design iteration and all of that?
Yeah. So the closer that we can get to our customers, the better it is, or the more success we'll have of achieving those requirements or exceeding their expectations. So we're constantly working with our sales teams and with our product managers, our suppliers, supply chain partners, to be able to capture that voice of the customer and see what those requirements are and feed that into our product development process. Additionally, we have technical experts that are looking at the market. Where are the market focus areas or trends? Where is it transforming and changing? And we want to bring that information back in to future design cycles and seeing what we can do so we can anticipate our customers' needs before we're just reacting to what those are.
Right. And that brings me to, I feel like, sometimes with such a large company, as you mentioned, you have teams spread out all over. Yeah. And again, we're covering so much ground as far as what kind of applications you're addressing and what the specific technology you all are working on is. How do you foster and kind of maintain, a culture of innovation and, like you said, people getting ahead of what the customer may need and thinking a little bit outside the box and not getting kind of drowned in the day-to-day?
Being a technology company, innovation is definitely at the forefront of what we're trying to achieve and do. But I think one of the first places that you have to start with innovation is understanding what is the definition or what is innovation. So what's the vision for innovation? I guess The definition that we would have within our company is making sure that we're creating and capturing value in new and different ways. And there's a couple of elements that are built into that. The new and different ways, a lot of times we think of innovation as you have to invent something new to the world. It doesn't have to just be new to the world. Maybe it's a way that we were manually doing it before. We want to automate that and improve or enhance a process that we already have.
Right.
That's also a level of innovation.
Of course, yeah.
And then being able to capture the value. We can create the value, but if we don't actually leverage that and incorporate that into our commercialization efforts, if we don't improve the employee experience or the customer experience, then we didn't necessarily capture that value. So we want to make sure we're creating an environment for our employees that gives them the ability to be able to experiment and be able to look at ways in which they can both create and capture the value in different ways and new ways.
I love that. I love that definition of innovation. I feel like we need like a t-shirt that says that. We'll just start repping those all over. No, I think that's really helpful to understand, and such a good point that it doesn't always have to be some magical brand new idea to be innovative. Like so much innovation obviously is built off of so much work that's been done before, and continuing to improve it, not really be satisfied with it just being done, right? But continuing to see how you can add value, as you mentioned, you know? So I think that's a really great definition. And I think a lot of our audience members, can relate to that, especially as engineers. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, Mike tells us about his journey as a mechanical engineer that found himself problem-solving his way into the field of electrical engineering, his pathway within Molex, and how together with Molex he puts his redefinition of innovation into work. Welcome back to The Bomb. I'm Magenta Strongheart. I'm talking to Mike Deppe, VP of Molex and a global leader in electronic solutions. Mike has played a pivotal role in shaping the company's trajectory and pushing the boundaries of what is possible. So you have a background in engineering, correct?
I do, yes.
What first got you involved and interested in engineering and, being in the electronics industry?
Yeah, I would say as a kid, I was one of those kids who would build with blocks or racetracks, or I was constantly building and creating things, I would say. I was also trying to take broken things and fix them. So an example, I remember I had a wagon, I had a paper route. I'd pull my papers in a wagon. The wheels were breaking. I went to the hardware store and ended up buying wheels from a lawnmower and put them on the wagon.
Nice.
So instead of buying a new wagon,
yeah,
it's like, no, I want to fix the wagon. I'm going to put that. I don't know. I just had that in my blood as being an engineer. So
totally.
The question then was mechanical engineer or electrical engineer. By the time I got to the university, I was taking my classes. It became very clear. I took 2 classes in electrical engineering, and I realized I can't see it. I can't see electrons move. I don't know if I can really do the
as much. Yeah.
So mechanical, I can see the gears. I can see the physical products being made. It was a no-brainer at that point. Like, okay, mechanical engineering is the way to go.
But then here you are in
but
the
then I get the best.
industry.
I get the best of both worlds, right?
Absolutely.
So here I am. I'm fortunate enough to be able to work in mechanical engineering, but actually at an electronics company, leading and transforming in both areas. So
that's awesome. And what can you kind of describe your journey from, mechanical engineering? You've been at Molex for 20 years now?
Yeah, 21.
You
21
just said,
years today.
Yeah, we just congratulated you. Sorry. It's been a long day here at the conference.
That's great.
And so could you tell us a little bit about your growth at the company and kind of, because we have, I think some of the benefits of this podcast for some of our audience members is thinking about different pathways through engineering and into the industry. And so I think it's always really valuable to hear what someone's journey was. How did they, get to where they are today? Yeah,
no, absolutely. If I went back to myself 21 years ago and I sat down and said, here's your career plan, this is what you're going to do, I wouldn't have believed anything that was written on there, right? I started in the company in customer service and technical support, handling automotive customers and some very challenging, line down situations and trying to work through those. But I had this engineering background. I wanted to get into how do I start doing design work with engineering? And I was able to move into a role doing design engineering. I did that for a few years before I was tapped on the shoulder by a plant manager and said, would you be interested in manufacturing? I see what you're doing in the design. We could maybe benefit from that in the manufacturing side. And I thought, well, why would I go to manufacturing? I want to design the world. Why would I go into manufacturing? But I said, well, maybe for 2 years, 3 years, a good resume
Famous last
builder,
words.
right? Well, that turned into about a dozen years. Maybe I'm not good with math, but it was a great experience because I did planning, materials management. I was involved with procurement, operations management, was the director of operations, leading a global team,
Okay.
and had the interaction in a very different space. It was still problem solving. So I was able to use the engineering background, but in a different way. It was more around the business side and economic thinking and decision making.
Mm-hmm.
I then came back into engineering as the director of engineering of that team. Did that for a few years, implementing and bringing project management in. Before then, I was asked to lead the business unit. Did that for a few years. That was the printed circuit solutions business unit. And then a year later, added in the RF business unit. So I led 2 business units at the same time.
Sounds like a lot.
Building on top of each other. Before my current role now that I'm in charge of the global product development team. So
Got it.
Quite the journey. But
Yeah,
I feel like every
definitely.
time I could get out of engineering, I just get sucked right
You
back
were like,
in.
I got to go back.
I love it.
Well,
It's
I'm
good.
interested to, if you don't mind, discuss a little bit some of your experience with manufacturing, because obviously that's a huge part of what's been covered and kind of showcased at this conference, of course, is all of the leaps and bounds that, Siemens is making in manufacturing, digital twin and support, of course, and kind of this digital thread. And so I'd be curious to hear, kind of just in being in this industry, as long as you have, are these things, what you're seeing here, is it in line with kind of where you saw this technology going, or is it exciting and surprising, or how do you kind of feel about where all this is at today as far as the simulation and this, being able to recreate a plant line and a manufacturing line totally virtually and digitally?
So all the above. When you say, is it exciting, exhilarating? Is it what I thought? No. But is it where we think we're going? Yes. And the reason I say that is because when you're designing something, you want to see it. That's one of the proud moments you have as a design engineer, is to see it turn into something. But being able to produce that isn't always the same as being able to design it. So you might be able to create pretty pictures in CAD, and then you bring that into the manufacturing world, and
it falls apart.
Yeah, like, how do you actually do this? How do you make that happen?
It worked so well.
So that's where, those are some of the challenges that I think we're trying to address. And being able to create this digital connection or digital thread from the requirements up front. What are the requirements or the expectations of what you want that product to do? Are we designing for that? And then how do we leverage our supply chain? How do we leverage our manufacturing process, our capabilities to be able to make it a reality? That's when you start to see all of that come together. That's the exciting part.
Totally.
Many times it's fragmented, and you have engineering, and then they kind of throw it over the wall to manufacturing,
Right.
and manufacturing starts to try and produce it and say, we can't make this. How do we do this? And then they have to throw it back to engineering to redesign and redo it. Those are some of the barriers we're trying to break down, and that's motivating.
Yeah,
That's
it's so incredible to see. I mean, I'm always amazed with all of the new capabilities of this software and how it's supporting manufacturing and changing just so quickly. And so I would love to hear what are you most excited about as far as any new and interesting technology that Molex is focused on right now? Is there anything specific you want to tell us about?
Well, new technologies. We're again involved in so many different markets. So new technologies are everywhere. We're seeing whether it's in the medical industry and you're seeing wearables and how do you do remote monitoring, automotive, you're seeing the electrification of bringing in different types of, whether it's infotainment or just speeds, cameras, sensors into the vehicles. You're also seeing 5G and telecom. And again, it's that access to information and data. Maybe as a society, we're addicted to data and information. We're trying to get that. An area that we're also seeing a lot of new technologies and transformation take place is also even on additive manufacturing. With the business unit that I was previously leading in printed circuit solutions, we were focused on flexible hybrid electronics as well. So take your standard printed circuit board and incorporate it into flexible technologies. So for wearables, or even in automotive, you're instead of using wires and cabling, which can be heavy and difficult to maneuver as we're putting bundles of cables in, we're using thinner, lightweight, flexible materials to be able to achieve the same space. Add that to additive manufacturing, and now you're starting to see 3D printing of different metals or resins take shape, and see how do we incorporate that to reduce time cycle. Or maybe you're making custom product that you can't necessarily make easily.
And are you all embedding the electronics into the additive manufacturing process?
Yeah, so we're
through layer by layer.
Exactly.
Wow.
That's the hybrid electronic part of it, right? So it's taking your traditional components, your chips that you might have on a printed circuit board, and incorporating that into flexible substrates
Directly
or flexible
into the
materials.
Wow, that's incredible. That's very exciting.
Easier said than done, for sure. But it's this goes back to, it's the manufacturing techniques, it's the capabilities, but it's also implementing the design criteria. How do we make sure we have the right materials? How do we have the right equipment? All of that comes back to the product development process. It's the people and the process that requires all of that to happen. The technology and the tools, they're there to help leverage and facilitate that.
Right.
But it's really the people and the process up front that can help you make the difference on there.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I loved that in one of the keynote talks yesterday at the start of the conference, there was a big screen across, where a slide, that they were presenting that was saying, all this technology is great, of course, but it ended with the people. You still need to have the people to enable it, and vice versa. Have the technology enable the people enable the technology. So I really appreciate you kind of bring it back home to that, because I do think that's important and something that scares a lot of people sometimes when we talk about technology, that are the people just going to get erased? And it's like, no, they're actually integral to all of this working and continuing to progress.
They enable all of it to take place, right? The technology is helping you accelerate that, but the people, that's where it really starts. And having the right talent, and what's the vision? What are you trying to achieve? What are you trying to accomplish? How does it create mutual benefit for both the employees and the customers? That's what's really special about it. Now, the business practice and the processes that you do, that's where you need tools to help you automate and eliminate the waste and do some of those aspects to help you get it to product and get it to market faster.
Definitely. Couldn't agree more. So we're going to wrap it up with just a few kind of rapid fire questions here. I want to be respectful of your time. I know we got a lot going on today. So the last few questions here. What is your favorite part of your job?
Wow. Well,
because it seems like there's a lot you do and a lot you cover.
There's a lot that I cover, but I'm one of the rare breed. I love what I do. I mean, I wake up every day motivated, excited to go in and work on global product development. But the main reason is because I get to work at a company with such talented individuals and employees working on new technologies, new areas of the market, and legacy items as well. But I think what's most rewarding from all of that is seeing the transformation of inspiring, engaging, enable the employees to hit their potential. When you get to see that you're providing, whether it's tools or process improvements or ways to allow them to do their job better or maximize their potential, that to me is the most rewarding part of the role.
Definitely. I think a lot of people can agree that the people you work with make such a difference in your day-to-day, of course, and how you end up feeling about your job, for Absolutely. Sure. And I couldn't agree more. Like, I'm so grateful to be here with my team, and we have, such a good time when we go places together and are able to tell our story and support one another through that. So it does make a difference just having the right folks on your team. Definitely. Yeah. All right. And so the last two questions here, what is something outside of technology that's inspiring you?
My family, 100%.
Great answer.
Yeah. My wife and my kids are definitely my inspiration. We spend a lot of time, they're all active in sports. So I spend a lot of time on the sidelines cheering on and working, but we're also very much an outdoor active family. So whether it's traveling the world or we're in outdoor activities, we're trying to explore and do new things, that's the excitement, and seeing them grow up and learn new ways and have that curiosity for learning. That's in the secret engineer inside of me. That's like, oh, that's great. The curiosity for learning is fantastic to see.
Definitely. Is there anything you think about when you think like, how is the world going to be when they're older? Is there anything you thought, oh, I can't imagine, or I wonder if it's going to be like this, or, have you thought how different it might be, or what kind of technology is going to exist?
Yeah. So I'm always amazed. I always felt that, okay, when I get to the point where I'm having the younger generations teach me about the technology, what does that mean for the future? Well, I'm at that point where I'm seeing what they're doing on their cell phones, or what they're doing. They don't watch television. It's all recordings or YouTube, or it's very different. And that's also the way that they're learning.
Yeah.
Right. So they're learning in different video content or things that they're finding on the internet streaming, which is very different than what we would have traditionally.
Definitely.
So you think if they're doing that now at this age, what is that going to look like when they're in the middle of their careers and there's additional generations coming through? The way that we learn and consume information is absolutely going to transform. And that's exciting and scary at the same time.
Definitely. Definitely. I'm really curious to see kind of where education goes in the next 10 years. I think it's going to change dramatically.
It'll be very different.
And last but not least, our finale question that we ask all of our guests is, what's on your personal bill of materials?
Personal bill of materials. I haven't heard it described in that way before. So
it's kind of an abstract question, and we like to see how different folks interpret it.
So I would say if there's a line item on my personal bill of materials, it would say music.
Okay.
Music for me is so powerful. It can change your mood, your emotion, your feelings. If you're needing a little bit of energy, you can listen to something that'll pump you up a little bit. If you're already thinking things are chaotic and swirling and crazy, you can have different music to be able to calm you down.
Definitely. How are you feeling about the Earth, Wind, and Fire performance that's going to happen later this week? Nice.
I'm super excited for that. I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
Awesome. It'll be a great finale to the event. I'm excited as well.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today, Mike.
Of
and
course.
I really appreciate your insights into the work that you do. I think a lot of us might not be able to wrap our heads around what goes into being a VP of global product development. It sounds like you cover so much ground, but to hear just you really humanized it for us today. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Have a good rest of your show.
All right. Appreciate it. You too.
That was my discussion with Mike Deppe, VP of Product Development at Molex. Today we talked about how Molex uses knowledge sharing, talent management, and effective resources to maintain innovation in over 100,000 different products and the challenge of prioritizing projects. We discussed the shift in focus towards agility and flexibility with the rise of AI, how it's really the people and the process up front that make the difference, and the importance of team collaboration domestically and globally, and of course, the power of music. If you like The Bomb, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow Supplyframe and Hackaday on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Design Lab at Supplyframe Design Lab on Instagram and Twitter. The Bomb is a Supplyframe podcast produced by me, Magenta Strongheart, and Ryan Tillotson. Written by Maggie Bowles and edited by Daniel Ferreira. Theme music is by Anna Hogbin, show art by Thomas Schneider, special thanks to Giovanni Salinas, Bruce Dominguez, Thomas Woodward, Jin Kumar, Jordan Clark, the entire Supplyframe team, and you, our wonderful listeners. I'm your host, Magenta Strongheart. See you next week.